Welcome. This is Logan Cockrum with Action Coach Bluegrass in Southern Indiana, and you're listening to the Success Through Action podcast, where we're talking to successful business owners to hear their stories and how they took action to grow their businesses. It's a pleasure having Jim Shaw on today with Zion Solutions Group to another edition of Success Through Action podcast. Thanks for coming on, Jim. Let's introduce yourself and kind of talk a little bit about Zion Solutions Group, and we'll get started.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Logan, thanks for having me. We met, week or two ago now and met through LinkedIn, and I'm glad to be a guest. Thanks for having me. You want me to introduce myself a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead. You have an interesting story to tell here.
Yeah, I think we were just saying I meet a lot of new people. I've been pretty active on LinkedIn, which is really not my normal core. I haven't been a super active social media person, but since we started Zion Solutions Group, and even before that, really, I was getting more active on LinkedIn. I just like the blend of social media and personal and family you can do on it. And as a result, I get to meet a lot of new people. So I've had to come up with, how do you introduce yourself? I told you this a few minutes ago. And I really introduced myself in 4 different statements. And this is also on my bio line in LinkedIn. But I introduced myself. So I'm Jim Shaw. I'm 42. I've got 4 principles: faith, family, doing work worth doing, and adventure. Those are things that how I would describe myself. I've got 4 young children. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Holly. We will be celebrating 14 years in May, and we've got 4 children. Abby Rose is 11. My Annabeth is 10. My son James is 7. And then my baby is Magnolia, but we call her Maggie, is 3. They're my life. I'm a man of faith. I'm a Southern Baptist. My wife and I are very involved there. We lead a marriage enrichment, and then I'm helping out with the men's ministry. So I got a whole lot going on there as well, but man of faith, I'm proud of that, and don't usually say that to shove it down anybody's throat. But when you are that, I'm okay saying it. Then doing work worth doing. I was telling you, I got 6 different companies, which sounds way more impressive than it really is. But my main company is Zion Solutions Group. I'm one of 4 co-founders, owners of it. We started it last year. It's a systems integration company. Very proud of it. Very proud of all it stands for and what we've been able to do in a year and what we're doing and how we're going to change lives of not only our team members and our partners and our customers we work with, but a foundation that we've got through it called AOK, Acts of Kindness. I was on a call earlier this morning talking with some people about a foundation they run out of Kenya, and that's what it's all about. And in addition to doing work that we all enjoy doing. So I'm an engineer by trade. I got a piece of paper. I tell everybody that I am an industrial engineer. I can pull that out and say I made it through school and got it. I don't do a lot of engineering work, but engineering's kind of a broad field, but we always call it I'm a problem solver. So that's what I do. And then adventure-wise, you can see some of my adventures. Let me move out of the way. Behind me here, and I don't know what all's in the camera, but I've got a picture looking at Angel's Landing in Zion National Park. That's not what Zion was named after. We named it after Mount Zion out of the Bible instead of Zion National Park, but it's a close second because we do all love to travel and be outdoors. I've been to several national parks, and then this picture behind me here is from Patagonia in South America. So close to this time last year, I was in South America hiking the O+W Trek, which is a 60, 70-mile backpacking hike in Patagonia in Torres del Paine. So I love a good adventure. I could probably take the entire podcast to talk about my adventures, Logan, but that's a little bit about me. So faith, family, doing work worth doing. I steal that from Teddy Roosevelt, and a good adventure.
So Jim, I went out to Zion a couple years back, and we got up early to do the Angel's Landing, and the night before there was a massive rain, and it washed out the entire trail. So they closed it. Yeah, they said it was going to be like,
when was it?
2018.
Okay. Well, I've gotten Angel's Landing 3 times, and I've chickened out 3 times because I don't like exposure, but everybody was in my group. They call it, I think it's Scout's Landing. It's right at the base. It's Walter's Wiggles. You go up, and then it's Scout's Lookout or something in it. But it's right before you go on the true Angel's Landing. And we were there in the winter, and it was storming, and it was snowing, and there was ice. And I don't like a lot of sheer exposure anyway, and I chickened out. I did it twice in one trip, went up there. It's just too slick. And then the other trip, I promised my wife I wasn't going to do it, so I didn't do it. But it's a beautiful park. One of my favorites.
So, Jim, how did you come up with the idea of Zion Solutions Group?
The company or the name or just in general?
The company itself.
Yeah, so I've worked in the material handling supply chain industry for my entire career. I've been 25 years plus. I had previously worked with another company that was a systems integration company, and we'd grown it pretty rapidly, had a lot of success, a lot of really good people there, good customers. Had brought in some technologies from overseas, and it had got pretty attractive. So there's some private equity that came in and purchased the company, and it just changed the dynamics for myself and for them and the culture. And so I won't go real deep into it, but time was right to not be there anymore. And so we went out, and the next step was, do you work for somebody or do you keep doing what you love doing? And fortunately, we were blessed enough to be able to start this company ourselves, and it's self-funded, and the four of us really enjoy working together. We're good at what we do. We like what we do. And so we just decided, let's take a run at it. We officially launched sometime in March last year. I should have the date, but we call when the company was created, our Founders Day, if you want to call it that, was January 4th of 2022. And we're about close to a year into really being up in business. There's two major trade shows. They alternate years. One's ProMat. It's in Chicago next week that we're all going and attending. And Modex is one that's in Atlanta. It's put on by the same organization, just different locations. And we launched the website and announced to the world the Monday of Modex last year. I was down hiking in Patagonia, but my three other partners were on site at the show. So it was just time. We had the right skills. I've always been in management and leadership. One of my partners previously owned the company I was at. He had exited the company in 2014. It was his family's business. His son is one of the partners as well. And then another guy is a guy named Drew. You can see the four of them behind me here. So it's Chuck. I'm going to get this right, but Chuck's the guy in the black jacket. Then the blue jacket is his son, Jordan Frank, myself, and then Drew Eubank. And we've all just worked together, known each other for multiple years. And so, yeah, we just said, let's do it.
So one of the things that I really like about this podcast is that I generally don't send the questions out. I think that just have an organic conversation. So one of the things that we talked to each other about before you came on was this idea of overcoming obstacles. So
yeah,
a good question for you is, how has failure shaped your professional success?
Yeah, I don't know why people think failure is a bad thing to admit that you have or don't have. And I think you grow from failure. So I've failed way more than I've succeeded. I love quotes, but I got a terrible memory. But Thomas Edison says something to the effect that if failures, you just found 10,000 ways that don't work before you found the way that did work. It's not really failure. And so I've never been scared of failure. I've failed a lot. I've failed in elementary school. I've failed in middle school. I failed in high school. I failed in college. I failed as an adult. I failed as a dad sometimes. You want to learn from your failures. You try not to make the same mistake twice. If you don't learn from it, I think that's when failures become something maybe that's not as good or a hindrance to you, is if you don't learn from why you failed. But I think there's lessons in every failure. I think you become more resolved. You get tougher. You appreciate the success and the wins more when you've come from a place of failure. And I told you when we start, when you were asking me, I think it's great when you get on a podcast. You don't need to be too prepped for this. You just let it flow and you have a conversation. So when we were telling people about starting this company, I got a lot of like, are you scared? Well, what if you fail? Or what were you nervous about it? I never really was, because I think once you've looked in the mirror and you realize what failure is and what could happen in the worst case, and you look at that and you know, yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, what do I do? And I told you, it's nothing against flipping burgers. I'm not diminishing that as a job or career in any capacity. But if I had to go take some job that was maybe less professional, or I had to have two jobs, I knew that's an outcome. We knew that failure could be an outcome. We didn't let it keep us back or hold us back, because I'd looked it in the eye and I was okay with it. If it failed, that's all right. I gave it my effort. And if I failed, at least I tried. So I've had some significant failures in my life. I was terrible at basketball. I'm in the state of Kentucky, and, you know, every little boy wants to be a basketball player. And I was very below average. And I tried to play. I practiced hard. It wasn't my calling in life. And so when one door closed, another opened. I ended up going out and wrestling. And I started as a sophomore, had a little bit of success in it. I've been an official or involved with officiating for 20 plus years now. And so out of that failure, wrestling was one thing that I think propelled me forward in life, of how to work towards a goal and how to know how much hard work gets put in. And had I not had that failure in basketball, I wouldn't have wrestled, and I wouldn't have potentially gone on and had the friends and the networks and all the good benefits out of wrestling. Had I not failed at some of the job related, some of the work I've done, I worked at UPS for 17 plus years, and I've failed a lot. There might be or might not be some people that see this, or depending on how it is, that would tell you, yeah, he failed, but I learned through it. I failed at how to talk to people. I failed at what I thought was a good solution, and it didn't work because I didn't approach it right. I didn't have the influence or the relationships that were needed. So I learned from that. And I'm a big UFC fan, or used to be quite a bit bigger, but not quite as big now, but Ultimate Fighting Championship. And John Kavanagh is a coach out of Ireland. He coached Conor McGregor, which most people know UFC, know mainstream Conor. But when they were coming up, John's got a book, and he's got a saying is, you win or you learn. It's not win or lose. You win or you learn. And I think it just talks to failure. So I ramble a whole lot, Logan. You might have to cut me off sometimes. But those are just a couple examples of I've failed and I learned. And you just get up, you try to do better. You try to be a better person. Drew, I call him a big guy in the shirt on this picture behind me. Drew says, it's all right we stub your toe, but just move your foot the next time. Don't stub it twice in the same place, because you're going to do it. You're going to learn from it.
So you kind of talked about when you're making this transition to creating Zion Solutions Group, most people that have ever tried to do something novel or be an entrepreneur, when you do that, you have your share of detractors, people that highlight the potential downsides to it. Did you ever second guess yourself at all?
Not once. No. I told everybody, so you have that. I mean, I think it's way easier for people to grow, and that's the minority. It's just that sometimes the minority or the smaller percentage of what you hear and what you get. That's what humans tend to cling to, right? We don't remember the 97 good things during the day, or 99 good things during the day. If somebody's maybe not real kind to us at one point, that's the one that stands out. So it was very few and far between. We had way more overwhelming supporters that were just happy. And I think people are happy genuinely. People want to see others succeed. They want to see them be successful. They know who we are as humans. We have some really deep relationships. This material handling industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but it's super small. You find out how many people are pulling for you when you go through something like what we did, and we had the advantage. The breakup was not real clean and easy, and that's okay. That's why I'm not diving into it a lot. It was mutual in a lot of ways, but it wasn't what we desired. It's not what we were building the company for, and Chuck's family's company. And so we had a lot of people pulling for us, and didn't realize how big our network was and how many people cared about us and where we stood in the industry. So let me say that first, but we never second guessed ourselves. I think you've got to be practical and pragmatic, that there is a business. And what I usually tell people is, when we're hiring, we take it really serious. Like, I can make the decisions for Jimmy and his family. I can look in the mirror and make those decisions and know what risk I'm willing to take or not take. But what I tell potential people that are coming to join us as team members, before we invest in them or before they invest in us and select us, I worried, probably if I had any worries, it's more about, like, I take it very serious when you take a person on your team and you bring them into your family. A lot of people overuse that word, but we call them family. I want to make sure I don't let them down. So if I had any worries or second guesses, it was really around, like, making sure we can support and be a sustainable business that people and their families can count on and come and work for us. That's probably the only worry I had. The rest of it is like, you said, it's funny you asked this question, like, if you fail, okay, it's like, what? All right. I mean, I guess there's a little pride in that it didn't work out, but when you're a good person and you surround yourself with good people, Logan, and you have good partners, and you find and have the advantage, which we do now because we're smaller and we can be more nimble and we can be a little more selective in who we work with, and you have good customers, I think it all takes care of itself. And it's not ours anyway. We're stewards of all this that we're handed, and we think we're in control, but we're really not. There's a higher power guiding all of this. And so I'm a control freak a little bit by nature, but sometimes you just got to let go, but never once worried about it. If anything, the only thing I was concerned about is we take pretty serious, real serious, that we bring on people, and can we make it sustainable enough where people can count on us and their families' livelihood counts on us, and our partners and our customers. I mean, they're counting on us. when you take a customer, there's times like if the projects we put in, they're multi-million-dollar projects, Logan, and if they don't go right, I mean, you've got people's careers, you've got businesses that could go under if we don't do it right. There's probably more, it's not pressure. If there's worries, if there's stresses, normal stresses, that's where it's at. I never once worried whether we'd succeed or fail. Does that sound bad?
No, that doesn't sound bad. I mean, if you have the conviction to get something done, if you have a conviction and passion about something, then the biggest concern that you should have is defining success. Two,
That's a good point.
what does success look like to you?
Yep. We did that. I took everybody through a strategy, and we had a guided strategy at the previous company. And then if you'd have told me 10 years ago in my career, was it value? I'm like, let's write some stuff on a piece of paper, let's go through the sit in strategy rooms and have conversations about it. But there was value and benefit in it. And the value and benefit is you're able to institutionalize and indoctrinate the thoughts of now myself being one of the founders of who we are and what we want to be. And you put your vision down, you put your mission down, you put your values down. And I think that's super important.
It's a whole lot different when it's your idea that you're putting on paper too.
Yes. Versus trying to put the companies down or something that's been around for multiple years. So we did. Our vision statement, we scream it from the mountaintops a lot, is to deliver memorable experiences and guide intelligent change. And your vision's what you aspire to be. You're not there, you may never get there, but it's looking out in the future. And then your missions, what do you do every day when you wake up? And ours is to build up, listen, inspire, and serve others and deliver world-class material handling solutions to our customers and who we work with. So that's our mission. That's what we wake up every day and do. And then, your values are, there's multiple ways to look at it, but your foundation, what's the minimal acceptable items to work with or work for Scion Solutions Group, the person you are, who you are. And we've got our values set that we're fun, we're transparent, we care about family, we care about customers, and we've got a few others. I don't have those memorized, but they come out through it. But I think it's a good question. You got to know what you want to be. And conviction, passion, all those things. Hopefully that comes out. Hopefully you get a little bit of that out of me. And if you met any of my partners or anybody at the company, really, that's who we are.
So most people haven't gotten to a place in life that you're in without, I wouldn't call it help, but certainly without guides, right? So guiding you through success. So next question is, who has been your greatest mentor or coach, and then why?
I knew you were going to ask me to single one person out, and I don't know that I can narrow it down to one individual person. I've had so many great mentors in my life that have helped mold me from little guy up to even now as an adult, right? At 42, we're adults, right, Logan? We got kids. It's funny, you never feel that way, right? When you're a kid and you look up and you see somebody that's 40 years old, you're like, man, they're so old. I remember being that. And teenagers were so old, and you're the same person. You got more age, more wear and tear on you. I'm at halftime, hopefully I'm at before halftime or a little near halftime of life. And I've had a lot of mentors. If I went through the list, I think you start first and foremost with, I've been blessed with wonderful parents. And my dad, we call him Big Jim. I ought to get a picture of him. He'll roll in my office sometimes. He rolled in today, and he'll just bust in here and talk. But just watching, learning, listening from my dad. I'm junior. My son's the third. My dad's senior. And he's just guided me. There's things that I do different than my dad. No human's perfect, right? But my dad's been one. My mother, her compassion. She was a nurse for several years, retired now. Just great parents. I was not raised wealthy. I would consider ourselves lower middle class, farming, small town community. But we had a family love and a family bond, and my whole family's still here around me. And my entire family is within about 5 miles of where I stand or sit right now. So I'd start with them. And then business wise, if you go back, I've had so many people. When I first started my career, I lost a girlfriend. I was just, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was in college. The day I started college, I started at UPS, and I was a kid. I was 18, 19 years old, and they mentored me and helped me through. And I never will forget, one of them was a guy named Jeff Hitchcock and John Kiefer were two guys that came out. And there's so many, you hate to name people because you just forget, but they both set me in a truck and rode me around and just treated me like you would your son, like I would mine now, and pass that knowledge down. And then I've had multiple bosses. One of the things about UPS is you rotate management quite often and get exposed to so many different people. But I had so many good bosses there that poured into me, that helped me out. Then you extend it on out. I mean, Chuck's been a mentor to me. Chuck Frank has, all those guys up there. I learned from all of them. My style's always been to learn from others, but I know I'm rambling and not answering your question directly, but I don't have a singular person. I've been very blessed with multiple people in my life. My CPA is a mentor. My church pastor's a mentor. My father-in-law is a mentor. I've had just so many people that have poured into me, and there's a lot of my partners and people that I work with that have been mentors. And I'm not shy. I think part of being able to have mentors is to be a good mentee and be willing and have the humility to go ask for help and go get help. And I've always been that. I've been turned away sometimes, but what you'll find out is if you ask, most people are more than willing. And I watch a lot. I don't want to say I'm self-taught, but I read a ton of leadership books. I'm an avid reader, love to read. There's things you can pick up from any leader you're around or any person in your life, that you look at the good and you try to discount the bad, and you add the good to your toolbox, and you try to eliminate the blind spots and maybe some of the stuff that you're not good at and what you see others doing that you may not be your ethos. It may not be what you enjoy. And I'm sure I missed somebody and forgot somebody because you put me on the spot to name a person, but I've had a lot of really good mentors.
You mentioned that you read a lot. What's the most influential book you've ever read?
You're asking me another direct question, aren't you?
How about influential books? We can
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I don't have, you could give the canned answer. I don't have a singular book that I would call out. I grew up Catholic. I'm now Southern Baptist. There's different views in life and how Catholics approach it. I went to Catholic school until I was in, it shut down after my fourth grade year. So I've been around the Bible and the gospel in my entire life, Logan, and I never really read and got into scripture. So I've done that a lot in the last 3 years, and there's just so much wisdom in the Bible. I got to have people explain stuff to me. So I've got an application study Bible, and I read it, and I'm part of some small groups. So certainly that is a book you got to put up. As far as just regular books, some of the ones that made the biggest impact for an engineer, I could design the best spreadsheet, the best solution. In my mind, it's going to work perfect, but I didn't have the influence. So How to Win Friends and Influence People, it's an older book. It's a great book. It's just about being a good human and talking to people and just playing on using, not for manipulation purposes, because I think a lot of people in sales and other professions do that, but genuinely, authentically, how to find and connect with people and to build real relationships. So that was a big book for me. I had to learn that early in my career. I think I was a pretty decent engineer. I had a lot of talent technically, but I had to learn to develop relationship skills. And back to the mentors, I had some people that helped me along that way because I don't like for telling people how to do things differently. And I've changed as I've gotten older in my career, but that really helped me develop relationships. Here lately, we've got 2 books that we share with our new employees and that we've read, and you may have heard of them or not, but The Carpenter by John Gordon. If you hadn't read that book, it's a really good book. John's a motivational speaker, a real advocate of positivity. He's got a ton of books out there, but one of my favorites is The Carpenter. We share that with new teammates when they join us. And then another one, I'm a big fan of Chick-fil-A and what they stand for and how they run their business. One of my favorite development and training is an organization called LeaderCast, and they were the platinum or major sponsor for it right off. And so before Truett Cathy passed, I got to listen to him read. So I've tried to read all the stuff I can on it, but it's Covert Cows, and I always forget the name of it, but it's a Chick-fil-A book, and it's got Covert Cows in it. I don't remember the whole title. It's by Steve Robinson, their chief marketing officer. That's the second book we have everybody read, because it talks a lot about how you can have an organization, how you do it's kind of marketing heavy a little bit, but it's a great book. And then another, just 2 more, since you asked me, there's a book called The Good Shepherd. It's either The Shepherd or The Good Shepherd. You'd think I'd remember. I told you my memory's bad, but it's a good book. And I can get you that afterwards, Logan. And then I'm reading one, if you haven't read, David Green of Hobby Lobby. He's got a couple books that he's put out, and it's giving it all away and making it again. Again, I probably butchered the title, but I'm reading one right now that he just released, and it's This Is Not Your Normal Leadership Book. I enjoy reading, so Enjoy a lot of nonfiction. I've read all the Bill O'Reilly books of the Killing series of Killing Patton, Killing JFK, Killing Lincoln. Lincoln's born about 2 miles from where I'm standing. So those are a lot of good books.
I normally don't talk a lot on these podcasts, but you said something that was really interesting because I was just having a conversation with a guy about this. I used to work in fitness. I had some ownership roles and stuff, and I guess you could say I was in sales. And I would go in and consult with these clubs that had no personal training. And then what they would say is, we're really struggling selling this, right? And they would want sales scripts and all this stuff. And I never gave out sales scripts. And the one thing that I would do when I would train trainers on how to sell personal training is after they got done with a meeting that I would set up with a potential client, I would ask them, I was like, what did you learn about their grandparents? And they'd look at me and they'd be like, well, no, I didn't learn anything. I was trying to find out what their problem was and then tell them about my solution and our process. And then I would say, okay, so next time when you come back, I want you to tell me about their grandparents. And this would take about 10 times. But eventually what I was trying to get them to do is actually humanize the person.
Find a connection.
Yeah. Find a connection. And then if you want to sell them something, then they will ask you.
That's right.
They already know they have a problem.
But it's important you don't do that there's a lot of people who I think it's important, like the manipulation side. You don't just do it because you're trying to. I mean, that is a technique, but most people can see it's very transparent if you're authentic or not. And I struggle with that. Logan, you're right. As a sales, like I'd never consider myself sales, but I do a whole lot of selling. Yep. But I look at it as relationship, and I genuinely care. I always like to get people talking about things they want to talk about and find a connection point with them. A family, what do they like to do? And I'm not doing it, so I'm trying to ultimately, well, let me get my hook in and then reel it in, right? It's because I care. And I always make a point of doing that. And that's one of the big things in how to win friends and influence people is I had some people at UPS that told me that. They said, Jimmy, you're really smart. You're one of the best engineers we've worked with and got, but you've got to find a way. You're all business. I'd show up to a meeting and let's go into this redesign and let me tell you why this is going to save you money and why, and take the time to go out to eat, break bread, and take the time to find out about people. And so I'm overkill with it now, Logan. Like I want to know what's your family. I leave with my family a lot and it wears people out. You've been in the business rooms, well, go roll call, right? Let's give your 30-second introduction about yourself. And I've worked here and I've done that and I've got this experience. And I always try to say, I'm 42 years old. I'm a dad of 4. I'm married to Holly, because those things are important to me.
Yeah, no, I wasn't saying to do it in an inauthentic way. I was saying that you already know that you have a solution. You can fundamentally change someone's life.
That's right. Yes.
You don't have to sell that. Just be a genuine human being with them. Stop viewing it as a sales pitch and a sales meeting and just be genuine. And
make a connection, build a relationship. And then if a sale comes out of that, I wasn't implying you were, by the way. Yeah. So it was, it's like make that connection. Your best salesmen that are relationship-based salesmen, most of everybody would say, I enjoy just talking to them. I enjoy having a conversation with them. And I bet you they know about each other's lives in some capacity.
Yep.
Or their hobbies, or their family, or their whatever, fill in the blank. Because that's all we are at the end of the day. Like you and I just got to know each other, and you're getting to know me a little better. I'm getting to know you a little better. But what we connect on? You've got a farm, I got a farm. You're a new dad, and I'm an old dad now. But yeah.
So Jim, kind of on that same line of thinking is, what inspires you today?
So you got another zinger that you threw in. That's all right. It makes me think. What makes me get up in the morning, I think that's inspiring, is having the people in my life that I deeply care about, like being a dad and taking care of my kids and just knowing that I'm in a season of life that's not going to last very long and seeing them grow. My daughter was she's in 6th grade, my oldest, and she was at a concert last night, and I looked over at my mom and said, they're growing up. I remember when she first learned to talk, and now she's up singing and just growing up. So I draw inspiration from that. It's going to sound cliche, but I draw inspiration from my partners behind me. It's just the ability to come out and help people like we want to help people. I'm inspired every day to wake up and work on this company and help good people and people that are deserving, and just feel fortunate and blessed. I get to do something I enjoy and love doing every day. Those two things inspire me. Yeah. And just getting out in nature. I'm an avid outdoor person. The only time my mind really just kind of calms and slows down and I feel the busyness of the world slow down is when I'm out looking at the creation and just looking at nature and just being there. Those are moments that inspire me and make you stop and think like, wow, there we go. I answered 3 of them.
So, Jim, I'm going to throw another zinger at you. I always end these with
Do it.
just kind of an off the wall question. What is your best tip for making the world a better place?
I had to treat others like you want to be treated. It doesn't get a lot simpler than that. Love, grace, treat others the way you want to be treated. It says your neighbor, right? But a lot of times we forget our neighbors, our spouse, our siblings. We forget our parents. Sometimes families gets the worst of you, especially when you got a high stress profession or you're super busy or fill in the blank. But yeah, I'd say those. Love, grace, and treat others like you want to be treated. Sounds easy, super hard.
It might be the hardest thing. So, Jim, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be on today, and I wish you all the best the rest of 2023.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
To everyone who tuned into this episode, thanks for listening to the Success Through Action podcast. Make sure to take action, and I'll see you next time.